Welcome to the lore of Braunhaven. We're going to continue our exploration of the Borderlands, and today we'll be talking about the Kingdom of Cassex. So, the knights that drew lots, the one that gained the Kingdom of Cassex, uh, really got the golden ticket. The Kingdom of Cassex is the most prosperous of the three kingdoms in the Borderlands, with the exception of the fact that the eastern third of the kingdom is the ruled over by the gloaming marshlands. The other two-thirds on the western side are rich in fertile farmlands. The Kingdom of Cassex controls the southern two-thirds of the Shawwood Forest. And the Kingdom of Cassex also has a second large town in the town of Athelsburg, which mostly deals with some trade with the elves of the Salvanus Forest, as well as the wood elves of the Shawwood Forest, but and of course the local farms. But it is mostly a stopover point for those that decide that they want to skirt around the edges of the Gray Hills by moving south from the Eastern Tradeway. Usually, that there's not a whole lot of traffic that comes that direction, but there are some. And there are a number of smaller towns and villages in the area that look to Athelsburg as uh, a point of civilization for them. The capital of Cassex is, of course, the city of London, which was originally a contender to be the imperial port. It was decided by Tacidantilus that the imperial port needed to be closer to the imperial capital of Glaustein, and so London was not it was deemed not to be a suitable location. It was also decided by the emperor at the time that it would be unwise to make London the imperial port, as it would be fracturing the Glaustian Empire in its political power. He could foresee that the imperial port, if it were to function as it was intended, would become a large city, and he didn't want to have essentially a second capital in an area that was not completely under the control of the Glaustian Empire yet. And the third reason that London wasn't to be made the imperial port is he didn't want to give too much power to one of the three knights, and thus upsetting the balance of power in the Borderlands region, then known as the Eastern Marches. The city of London is ruled by a fairly just and righteous king. Uh, it does have a bit of a religious bent. The religion of the Kingdom of Cassex is mostly the New Faith, and with some homage paid to the Old Faith as well. One thing that is absent from the city of London and has been is the worship of Uselux. Um, that is mostly a thing going on in the Glaustian Empire and has thankfully been void from the Borderlands region, although if Uselux gets his way and gets control complete of the Glaustian Empire and gets things going the way he wants them to, that of course will be coming, and I'm sure that the Kingdom of Cassex would be one of his first stops. It is said that if you control the Kingdom of Cassex, it wouldn't be too much to control all of the Borderlands. Cassex has the biggest army. Their most dangerous threat, of course, being lizard folk from the gloaming marshlands, but their army is big enough that they've been able to put down that threat. Unlike the Kingdom of Beria and the Kingdom of Kaling, they don't have to really deal too much with gnoll incursions from the eastern plains, mostly because the gnolls just have very little interest in crossing the marshlands. That, and they don't have a whole lot of uh, direct contact or alliance with the lizard folk. Lizard folk, being what they are, will kill and eat just about anything. Unfortunately, as will the gnolls. So they don't particularly get along, and they're not about to just cross over this terrible area. Meanwhile, the Kingdom of Beria and the Kingdom of Kaling do have to deal sometimes with Knoll incursions. This is especially a problem for Beria, causing it to have to essentially deal with four fronts, dealing with skirmishes in the northern Shalwood Forest against the Kingdom of Cassex, usually arguments over logging rights and land rights along that edge. And of course, sometimes with the Kingdom of Kaling, when Beria decides to antagonize them by pushing too far into their borders, that can sometimes cause skirmishes. But the big threat for Beria, of course, is the lizard folk. They're right there in the heartlands of lizard territory. And then, of course, the gnolls that come from the east. So Beria kind of gets it pretty hard. But Cassex, Cassex doesn't have that problem. At one point, London had the designs to expand, and they wanted to place a port at the mouth of the Gloaming Marshlands, but that failed, and those buildings essentially just sank into the swamp. The land of the marshlands is not suitable for major construction. The capital of Sheraborn for the Kingdom of Beria is about the only exemption to that entire rule. Beyond the mud huts and small thatch houses that the lizard folk and some witches build in the Gloaming Marshlands, the marshlands are not conducive to any kind of major port, and so those plans were abandoned. This has made the capital of London kind of explode in population. I wouldn't say that there are tens of thousands, but there are thousands of people that live in the city of London, and it is quite cosmopolitan for the region. There being a port city, they do get a lot of immigration from other locations, and there is a constant influx of Orentians and Ereboshians and others that can be found in the city of London. As I said, the king of London is, or the king of Cassex is a right and just man. He does follow the tenets of the new faith, but he is a good tactician and a shrewd diplomat. He does have some diplomatic ties to the other two kingdoms as well as abroad. Unlike the other two kingdoms, especially Beria, Cassex has not really stuck to the ideal of keeping the blue blood blue by marrying within the family, and they have dipped outside. I mean, some of that happens. That's bound to happen with any royalty. But they have added to the bloodline. There was at one point an alliance between the Kingdom of Cassex and the Kingdom of Kaling. Uh, One king had married a princess from the Kingdom of Kaling, and that led to an alliance between the two. It, Today, they wouldn't necessarily, or at least in the year 212, they wouldn't necessarily be considered to have an alliance, but they are friendly with one another, which can be a sticking point for the Kingdom of Beria since they're stuck in the middle. This further adds to the anxiety of the Queen Regent of the Kingdom of Beria, knowing that she has two kingdoms that are friendly with one another on either side of her, to the north and to the south. The Kingdom of Cassex has a large guild network. Everything is run by the guilds. If you want to work on the docks, if you want to build a new building, if you work as a street sweeper or a sewer sweep, or if you are working in the burial industry or you are a ale maker, it doesn't matter what you do, there's a guild for it, and all of these guilds petition the king for leverage for their particular industry. This goes so far as to the Thieves Guild. Despite the fact that London is a lawful and just city, there is of course, an expansive underworld, and the Thieves Guild really operates quite widely in the city of London. They've got their fingers in many pies, in many industries. It's probably impossible to do anything without having some contact with the Thieves Guild in London. The king, for his part, knows of this and has decided that they will be allowed to operate because anybody with a right mind realizes that civilization will not function without some form of black market. The the valve comes into play in how much of that black market you are turning a blind eye to. If it becomes too blatant and it is too much, then of course the powers that be have to act in order to put that down. If you act too harshly and put down too much of it, then the anxiety and stress of the population rises. So, in order to have any form of civilization, you have to have some kind of stress relief, usually in the form of a black market. And the king is wise enough to realize this. So, the Thieves Guild, so far, has been allowed to operate without any major disruption. There have, of course, been raids on some of their operations, but this isn't to say that the king is actually putting them down. He's putting them in check or putting them on notice by doing a raid. And then, of course, the Thieves Guild backs off on whatever large-scale project it is that they're working on. There are rumors that there is some kind of ancient evil that may be brewing in the city of London. Those rumors lead to one to think that it's somewhere in the sewers beneath the city or in the shadows. Nobody has been able to confirm this. And the king, of course, not that he turns away from it or ignores it, but he doesn't put much stock in it. Pretty much things in the Kingdom of Cassex are going very well, and there's nothing to suggest that that will change anytime soon, with the exception, of course, of the things that are going on in the Glaucian Empire prior to year 212. But they may not actually know about all of that. Communication between the borderlands and the Glaucian Empire is rare, and the information that does come in is usually in the form of gossip and rumor from trade caravans that are moving up and down the Eastern Tradeway. So they may not know entirely about, all of the machinations of Vuslux and, what has gone on with the demon plague that has killed off 2/3 of the population west of the Grey Hills and east of the Skelos Mountains. So that is the Kingdom of Cassex. Next time we will be discussing the Gloucester Inn and what it is and how it actually exists, who is in charge of it, and what is its purpose. We'll catch that next time on the on the lore of Braunhaven. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.